everybody. Welcome back to Cincinnati Zoo Tales. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark. Thanks to all you listeners for tuning into another episode of Zoo Tales. Jenna, it's one of our favorite kind of episodes. We're being joined by a real-life scientist, a real-life researcher, Dr. Tori Kennedy, who's a postdoctoral scientist over at CREW. Everyone is familiar with our Center for Research of Endangered Wildlife. We love hearing about all the work you all do. It's incredible and mind-blowing, and we're always fascinated by it. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always exciting to come talk about my science with people. So
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
We're excited because I always leave with more questions, and you guys are just so smart. All of these doctors and scientists that come and talk to us will probably have a million questions for you. But thank you for being here. And I always want to know, how did you, this is an interesting job, a unique job. How did you get here? Where did you start?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I guess, the joke among a lot of the CREW scientists is everyone starts off wanting to be a veterinarian, and then we get, pulled in one direction or the other. So I went to Ohio State for undergrad because they have a big vet school, and I was like, I'm going to be a veterinarian. This is my plan. This is my childhood dream. And then I started taking classes in reproductive biology, and I got hooked, and I started volunteering in the lab, and I was kind of an undergrad student research volunteer for a while, and that just pushed me straight down the rabbit hole of I want to do reproductive biology. I want to be a scientist that asks questions and tries to solve problems that we don't know the answer to right now. And also just be a part of making more baby animals instead of dealing with sick animals was the initial what sold me. So I ended up doing a master's degree in animal sciences with a focus on reproductive biology, and that was all with cattle because we consume livestock. There's lots of funding to go to grad school for that. And I started ultrasounding as a research tool, and I fell in love with ultrasound. But I still had this kind of interest in wildlife, and I wasn't sure how to get from vet science to animal science to wildlife field. So I did a couple internships, and one of them was actually at the Cincinnati Zoo at CREW with Dr. Aaron Curry back the year that Fiona was born. So that's my little claim to fame. Yeah, I got to see Dr. Jesse Watuszniak working on ultrasound with BB that year, and it was so cool. And so then after that and a couple other zoo internships, with Smithsonian, and then working with the Memphis Zoo as a lab manager for a little bit, I was hooked. I'm I gotta do a PhD. I want to be the one that designs the projects. So I went and did a PhD at Colorado State, and that was actually in their biomedical sciences department, which is part of the college of the vet school. So they do see, besides the kind of typical species you'd see come into a vet school, they did have aspects of wildlife medicine there. But I was really focused on studying placental physiology. So my research animal, again, was livestock. It was sheep. But I got to ultrasound them all the time, which is my favorite. And then I got to learn all these research tools kind of on the edge of reproductive technologies with collecting embryos and developing them in an incubator and then being able to put them back in animals. We actually did it was really cool.
That's incredible. Incredible.
We were looking at specifically the metabolism in the placenta during high-risk pregnancies. So we were able to actually gene edit the embryos to be deficient in glucose transport, and then put them back in a sheep and watch how it develops and how the placenta kind of falls short of doing its job. And this is a common pathway in the human world when pregnant people are told their placenta is not doing a good job. This is usually one of the things that's happening. We call it placental insufficiency. So I did all these kind of high-tech biomedical things for my PhD with the idea that I'd bring it back to wildlife. And then I saw that Erin Curry was looking for a postdoc, so I immediately applied and emailed her hey, do you remember me? I'd love to come back to CREW, and the rest is kind of history. I ended up here for another 2 years. So
Okay, so we're not talking about the plan today. We're gonna
The whole conversation just got sidetracked.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, don't say sorry.
It's
No,
incredible.
I'm like, we might just have to have you back to tell me about your past because that stuff is insane, and now I have so many questions about this.
Okay, my first question of many: how do you gene edit an embryo? How do you even go about that?
Absolutely. So, kind of like the biggest one you see like in the news is called CRISPR-Cas9, and it's this technology for like cutting the genes so that they don't get transcribed and then turned into proteins and then become the thing in the body that the protein tells the body to make. The way that we did it is a more classic method called lentiviral transfection. So we use this thing called the lentivirus, which is related to the HIV virus, but does not cause HIV, I promise. And we basically give the lentivirus the code for the gene that we're looking to impact. And so the way CRISPR-Cas9 works is that it completely stops the gene from ever working, whereas lentivirus just suppresses it. Because we knew if we prevented the placenta from completely using glucose with CRISPR-Cas9, it would just completely fail and the pregnancy wouldn't happen. But because we used lentivirus, we basically suppressed that pathway without eliminating it completely. And that way we can look at a placenta that's bad at delivering glucose, but is still delivering some glucose, which is a lot more reflective of human pregnancies when the baby isn't getting enough nutrients from the placenta. So it's kind of like what if we took something we learned about in the early 80s and brought it up to speed to the modern research to create a model of placental issues in humans, but use sheep to study it because I can ultrasound them every day.
Okay, so you answered the question,
That's
but
wild.
led to like 50 more questions for me.
Yeah.
And this is usual with any sort of reproductive scientist that we have. I just like, you say you cut it, and you like there aren't scissors for this. There aren't.
Yeah.
You can't see. How do you see? Can you see a gene? I feel like the dumbest person.
No.
Like I don't even know if I should try and ask because.
Oh, it's okay. There's like different like sequencing methods. So the way I like developed this model for the sheep is we first start with cells. And so we can use cells that we actually tag with another protein from the wildlife world. We have this thing called green fluorescent protein, and the code for it came from jellyfish that glow green at night.
Okay.
And so I can use that with my lentivirus and use the lentivirus to gene edit the cells, and then all the cells that it infected are green under fluorescence. But I just will, in order to confirm like that the gene sequence was changed, we just collect cells and then collect the DNA from it and send the DNA to a company to sequence it, and they do the full sequence so you get all the letters and you can see like, okay, I actually did create a genetic difference. But there's a lot of like trust in like clear liquids, which happens at Crew too. We're like, I know I did all these things correctly, and so it should work, but we really might not know until the end because it's just like a clear liquid. So.
Oh my god, this is wild. Yeah, and the fact that we can see or not see, I don't know the letters and the DNA and all of that, it just all blows my mind. But I'll have to like take you out for a beer and ask all these questions sometime. But wow, okay. So also before you even told us about all of this incredible work you did, I was going to ask you like, or just mention how amazing it is that there are all of these jobs that again, we talk about this a lot. Like there are so many ways you can be involved in conservation or wildlife or science or animal care, but like you don't even know that this job exists.
Right?
And so like when you knew you wanted to start, like get your PhD and all of that, for anybody who's like maybe considering this or interested in this sort of thing, like how do you like find the funding, or how do you like, how do you know how to like start a project? Like where do you go for that?
Yeah, it's tough. And like the internships and the jobs that I had in between, where I said I like interned with Smithsonian and here at Cincinnati Zoo, and then I worked for Memphis Zoo, like those were like crucial steps for me for figuring out like what works for like my learning style and like what I can handle doing all day. Like, I know I can't sit in front of a computer all day. I need to be like doing research projects that have like different types of work with it, so that like any given week I might be doing something completely different, or like in 3 years from now I'll be like hyper focused on a completely new topic instead of just like being at my computer all the time. But yeah, we have interns at like all levels that come to crew, and we always try to talk to them about this and like our weird paths to wildlife conservation, because I do feel like a lot of us start off like the only animal job you know exists is veterinarians.
Yes.
And then once you start chasing that and you meet other people that, like tangential to it, you learn like, oh, I'm not interested in diseases. I'm more interested in reproduction, or I don't know if I could, put animals down. I'd rather do the other end, make more babies. So,
yeah, I resonated with that because I thought, growing up wanted to be a vet, and I was like, I don't want to work with sick animals or scared animals, the ones that just like see you for once a year and they don't actually build a relationship. They don't see you as like a positive thing in their life, and that's where like animal keeping, was more my thing. But yeah, it's interesting. I think I wouldn't have recognized or like known this with research science, but internships really are, I always say, the best way as becoming a zookeeper to figure out what you like and you don't like. But it just sounds like internships in general are very, very
for sure.
helpful.
The funding thing is a complicated question for sure, and especially with like current politics. But for grad school, like a mentor of mine told me, like, chase someone who has funding and is looking to sponsor students. Because especially like early on in your career when you're like learning things and you're like probably getting involved in a project that isn't going to be exactly what you're going to spend the rest of your life working on, like finding a lab that was like established and had funding and was just looking to add more students to help move the research along was really helpful for me. And also it means that I went to grad school for free on a stipend, which, as they joke about, it's true, it's not great, but but I didn't have any student debt for my master's or my PhD, and that was like a big thing for me for sure.
I bet.
So,
because that would be scary to take this on and like not...
and halfway through realize like, oh God, this isn't for me at all. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So you mentioned then you reached out to Dr. Erin Curry, and tell us how long you've been here and what exactly your specific projects you've worked on here so far.
Yeah, so I've been here about 2 years now, and I came in on a grant actually. So Erin got this grant through IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Crew is pretty successful at getting grants through them. It's a government entity, and they usually fund projects with museums, but also with zoos, because zoos are like living museums. And so she kind of already had the idea, and she had the funding, and she's the director of the Polar Bear Signature Project. So she's been chasing a pregnancy test in polar bears for about 10-ish years now. And she's gone at it from like every angle you can think of and all the classic approaches. So we decided this time around we use a model species and bring in my experience from the biomedical world to try and look at something new in blood that could be a pregnancy marker. So we worked at a remote research facility with American mink. So they're a small carnivore, and they have almost all of the same like adaptations to pregnancy that polar bears have, but on a shorter timeline. Like they give birth in the spring. They breed and give birth in the spring, whereas polar bears, they're breeding in the spring, but giving birth like in the den in the winter. And we collected a whole bunch of samples. So we have urine samples, we have fecal samples, but we also got blood samples, which is kind of our like gold standard in the lab, but the thing that we struggle to get a lot of in wildlife, because especially with polar bears, like we have collaborators that go out in the field in Canada and Alaska, and they track bears, and they'll get like one blood sample like once during the year when they find a bear, and that's like it. So we were able to get blood samples from a whole bunch of pregnant animals on this study, and now I'm looking at another crazy thing called extracellular vesicles, and it's a biomarker in the blood that they are kind of like, a friend of mine described it as text messages from cells.
Text messages from cells.
Yeah. So like different like organs in the body and like tissues in the body will release these little like membrane packages that have like DNA and protein and like cell receptors on them, and then they send it out into like the bloodstream or like your urine or like any kind of biological fluid, and it finds its like target elsewhere in the body and gives those proteins or DNA or whatever it's carrying like to that cell. And in pregnancy, we know this happens between the placenta and the uterus. So we're hoping in these blood samples we can find these extracellular vesicles that are like coming from, in my hope, from the placenta. So that way when we get a blood sample from a polar bear, I can look for something that is only going to be there if there's a placenta there. And so it would only be there if the animal's successfully pregnant. Wow. So that's our like big project right now that I've pretty much been working on for 2 years. So
you mentioned earlier that like you don't want to be at your computer all day and you want to like try different things, and that's what I always struggle to another thing I struggle to understand is like what like I
what do we do all day?
Yes,
like, what's a day look like? Yeah.
How like I understand that it probably takes a lot of patience to be a scientist, and
yes.
So like you're just waiting on information and things, but so like what do you do all day? What is your time consumed with? So if you tell us like kind of what your day looks like, but I also, before I forget, wanted you to tell us a little bit about polar bear pregnancies and why they're unique in that sort of info.
Course. What should we start with, polar bears or crew?
Let's start with polar bears. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start with that.
Yeah, I love polar bears, so I'm happy to talk about that. So polar bears, like the reason, well, one of the big reasons we study them, besides them being like the hyper-charismatic megafauna and kind of like the poster child for global warming right now, is because of the 8 bear species in the world, 6 of them are listed as vulnerable. And we only have a somewhat good way to detect pregnancy in giant pandas, and giant pandas are like their own branch of the bear family tree. So, you know, kudos to the scientists on those projects, but it's not really helping with our like polar bears and even like the Andean bears, the sloth bears, and our like grizzlies and black bears. So, getting a pregnancy test would be super helpful for, you know, increasing just like simply the population, but also for like population management. Because polar bears, they breed in like early spring, and then their embryo goes into this like pause phase called diapause. So it's just like hanging out in the uterus, and as far as we know, pretty much doing nothing. And it
like
waits.
It's not growing or developing at all during that period? Okay.
It's just like waiting, and it's not attached to the uterus like through the placenta at all. Like the placenta isn't there yet. It's just a little sphere of cells. And then like around the fall equinox, it starts developing again and then starts to create a placenta that interacts with the uterus and implants. And then the actual pregnancy is only like 65-ish days.
Wow. Okay.
And then they go into their den and give birth in the den. So there's a huge part of the year where they're pregnant, but they just have an embryo that's doing nothing. And we know from like studies in other species, it's really hard to detect that. Like I can't see an embryo on an ultrasound. There's no like blood test for that. We know that it exists from like literally like early studies where people just like turn in carcasses from hunting polar bears and they find like an embryo in the uterus. And also like comparative studies with other animals that have diapause, but there's no like, it's almost like a black box for like months and months of the year. And then when she is like physically pregnant, when there's a placenta and a fetus growing, she goes into a den. So we can't ultrasound her. We can't even get urine samples and fecal samples. Like some zoos have tried to train their polar bears for ultrasound, but like the time frame when they're like willing to participate in ultrasound is super early compared to the pregnancy, and so we still just see nothing. So we end up with like this situation where we have bears in zoos that we see them breeding, and then we see like no real changes for most of the year, and then she goes into a den, and then hopefully she comes out with cubs, and sometimes she doesn't. So that it's hard from like a management perspective. Like if we want to move bears, it would be great to know she's not pregnant, because then we can move her to another zoo without risking like the success of her pregnancy, because anesthesia is bad for pregnancy, stress of moving is bad for pregnancy.
And they show a lot of the signs. It's like called a pseudo pregnancy, right? Sometimes you think because of all their behaviors that they're pregnant, and other species do this too. And you're like, why are you showing all these signs that you're not actually pregnant? So you're tricked until they come out of their den.
We're tricked by pseudo pregnancy, and all the way down to the hormone level. We're tricked by pseudo pregnancy.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, one of the things crew does a lot, like almost any given day you walk in a crew, there's somebody crushing poop in order to get hormones from it and run our hormone assays. And we receive poop samples from zoos with polar bears from all across the U.S. And we almost don't even bother with progesterone anymore because it's not useful to us. Because if there's high progesterone, they could be pregnant, but it also could be pseudo-pregnancy. So not very helpful.
So tricky. That's crazy.
And the red pandas do the same thing. They will have a pseudo pregnancy as well.
And that's kind of what we were planning on talking about today, but I've derailed it with a lot of questions, and you're just like, cool,
you're
background.
Cool, I'll say your work you do is incredible.
But we wanted to talk about red pandas today, and so that's part of the reason that like the polar bear studies kind of tie in, is because red pandas share similar aspects of pregnancy.
The red pandas also do the pseudo-pregnancy and the embryonic diapause, which means that when they're actually pregnant, it's still only a 60-day period. And they're kind of like an adorable little model for our polar bear.
A little less dangerous.
A miniature red polar bear.
Yeah. And they, thanks to the work from Dr. Aaron Curry, and our amazing zookeepers here, when they're well trained, they'll stand for ultrasound all the way up to almost giving birth, because they don't go into dens like polar bears. So we can actually like get more knowledge of that pregnancy from them just with ultrasound alone, which is my favorite research tool.
Yeah, that would be super fun. You get to see little babies on an ultrasound machine.
Yeah.
So trying to decide like where to go. We wanted to like make an announcement and tell everyone about a recent birth. And I want to hear more about how you do the ultrasounds and such. But I think we should just, like, I'm sure everybody knows, we've announced it, but we recently had a red panda, Marcy, correct?
Yes.
That gave birth to the 100th red panda cub, right? Yeah, cub.
Yes.
Yeah.
Born here at the Cincinnati Zoo.
Right.
So
Incredible.
Yes, amazing. Like, that seems like a lot of red panda babies to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a lot of red panda babies. Erin had a paper a couple of years ago where she was talking about these like ultrasound measures in red pandas during pregnancy, and they partnered with the Toronto Zoo, and like Cincinnati Zoo's numbers just like blow the Toronto Zoo out of the water. If I remember correctly, they had like a decades long streak of just like no babies, like lots of breeding, like brought in new animals, but like no babies. So
do we have any idea? Like, are we doing something different that we know of that we can share with them?
I know, right? I know there's a lot of conversation, especially during breeding season, of like with the like the SSP coordinators and things like that, on like what we're doing. And it's like, to me, when we were working with Marcy, it really sounded like our zoo just has like a lot of nest box options and a lot of like ways for the red pandas to get away from each other, because they really only spend time with each other when they're breeding, and then they go back their separate ways. There's also been a lot of really interesting talk to witness about like the trees on exhibits, because they're arboreal, so they like to be like high up in the trees. And I think like if anyone can Google this, there's always been like shenanigans for red pandas in zoos because they'll climb like really high up.
They're escape artists too.
Yeah,
they can get out of anything.
Branch breaks.
And they're not scared of the snow. They're fine with snow.
Yeah.
So I personally am totally sold on like it's probably the nest boxes that we have, but also the fact they have good trees to climb in. Like Louisville Zoo, we went down there earlier this year for another project, but we got to see their panda exhibit, and it was like it's a converted, I believe it was like a snow leopard area that they had, and they have like big overgrown trees in there that they let the panda just go hang out in all day long. So
fun.
Yeah, there is a lot of like, if you go to other zoos and see other red panda habitats, there's so much more verticality in our panda habitat than there are in other panda habitats, which is interesting. And Jen, I just want to like emphasize your point, the fact that this is the 100th red panda baby at our zoo. So there are roughly 10,000 red pandas in the wild left.
Wow.
And we've had 100 born in Cincinnati Zoo, which is like simultaneously sad there's only 10,000 left, but it's also incredible that it's like, obviously not all of our 100 are still alive, but 1% of the wild population born in Cincinnati Zoo, which is incredible.
Yeah, that's so cool when you put it in that context.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm glad because we got so distracted by all of Dr. Tori's amazing work that the questions, like, we wanted to talk about Marcy and her baby and all of the ultrasounding that you've done with her and how things are going. But 100 cubs born here at the Cincinnati Zoo. Like, we're one of the oldest zoos, but still, that is like a long time in I guess their pregnancy is short, but still, they're only breeding once a year, correct? Like, it's not like they're having multiple pregnancies a year and giving birth all the time. So that's a lot of red pandas.
Yeah, and I think when I was looking into it, we've had pandas since 1983, so it's not even like a crazy long time. We've got the secret sauce somehow.
Well, that's awesome. I'm very excited for us and Marcy and the Red Panda Keeper team and everybody. And Dr. Tori, now you got to do ultrasounds, and we were going to talk about what your day looks like. So clearly there's a lot that goes into it, but part of it is getting to participate and help with ultrasounds. Have you done just red pandas here, or have you done any other Cincinnati Zoo animals?
I've gotten to help out a little bit. I wish I could ultrasound everything because I'm an addict. One of my colleagues, Dr. Julie Barnes, she's a veterinarian scientist and also a board certified therogenologist, which means that she's like the vet expert on like repro as it's related to like everything else going on in the body. And she has a really awesome ultrasound, so we've like teamed up together to do stuff. For a little bit we were ultrasounding Lightning the sloth, and Lightning did not like me, but Lightning liked Julie, and I think it's because Julie's a lot taller than me. I don't know. Like, Lightning could stay way up in her spot in the corner, and Julie could just kind of reach up and tuck the probe onto her belly. Whereas, like, for me, I was standing on things, and we were trying to bribe Lightning to come down, and she was just not happy.
That's funny.
But Marcy's the one I've worked with the most, and it's been awesome. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just going to ask, what does that look like? For anybody wondering, like, they have a lot of fur. Do you have to shave them? What does the training look like? Is it,
Yeah, so we were saying, like, what's your day-to-day? So for, like, a couple of months now, every Wednesday was, like, me going to visit Marcy. So that was, like, definitely the peak of my week. The Panda Keepers started working with her to train her to use this, like, little wooden stand that they built. So it almost looks like she's like standing out with her hands, her front paws on like a railing. And that way she has to like stretch her body upwards to put her front paws up. And then it leaves her belly exposed. And this is like the method that the keepers have used on like a bunch of previous like panda pregnancies here. And it's worked really well. And she will literally like do anything for apple slices, which is so adorable to see. And when we got started, like she was still like, they had practiced like staging her. Is that the right word for me?
Sure. Yeah.
But I think like she caught on really quick. Like Paul Reinhardt, one of the keepers there, was saying like she's like super motivated and like pretty smart. And so when I started going over there, she already like knew what the apples were for and like knew where her spot was.
She'd just be ready for you.
Yeah. And so like the first like month-ish was mostly just me trying to get her used to the ultrasound. It makes like a little bit of noise, but the big like hurdle for animals with ultrasound is like the gel or like the alcohol solution we use. But we need that to make good contact with the skin, because the ultrasound waves, like, they don't travel through air, but they travel like best through fluid like water. But if I can't like just keep pouring water on her, so we have these ultrasound gel. And she is like super fluffy. So when I was starting, we really didn't want to shave her because we didn't want her to like look really weird on exhibit.
Yeah.
And people, I think, see an animal with like a shaved square and they think like, oh no, surgery. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our like early practice was me just like rubbing enough gel on her belly to get her to like be used to it and hold still. But like I said, she loves apples, so she was like, sure. Like, there were only like a few times really in the beginning where she was like, I'm done, and like would walk away. So like once she's like staged like that, as long as she's getting her apples, I can like do my thing with the ultrasound. Our kind of like max amount of time with her was about 3 minutes. Okay. So when I'm running the machine, I'm also just recording everything that happens on the screen, so that way I can go back and analyze the video. But yeah, it was really exciting. About like, I guess it'd be like a month and a half now ago, I started seeing like fluid like filling up her uterus. So like kind of your first signs of pregnancy is like all this fluid starts accumulating in the uterus, and like the uterine horns get wider and wider. So we started seeing that. And then I would like go back to the lab and measure like the width of what we're calling like the uterine lumen, and compare it to all this historical data that Erin Curry has from other pregnancies. And so we were like able to start guessing like a 20-day range, which isn't great for like 60 days, right? But then I started actually seeing little fetuses, which is like the most exciting. And yes. I'm terrible at keeping a secret when I'm ultrasounding too. I was like, oh my gosh. So,
were you trying to keep it a secret from the keepers?
I was trying to like keep it professional, but I just like kind of screamed when I
got too excited.
Yeah. And I only saw one at first, and then like I think it was like a couple weeks later I saw two, and like both of them were like the same size, which is a really good sign for twins. And I saw heartbeats on both of them, which is like our first check of like the, viability of the fetus. And then once we started seeing actual like bone development, we know from other data, like, oh, we're getting in like the countdown of like 30 days at this point.
Isn't that wild? In 30 days, like all of that
it's
development
crazy.
happens.
Yeah.
It's wild.
The pace that they grew at is kind of shocking, because I'm so used to like coming from how I learned ultrasound in like livestock, like cows like grow on a much longer time frame than that, and like same thing with sheep are like 115 days, so like they don't make like that much progress in the time of a week compared to Marcy's babies, where they were just like go
Yeah. It's probably exciting. You don't have to wait as long. It's like each
week
right? You see a big difference.
Yeah, every week once we started seeing babies, it was like, oh nice, now I'm getting measurements of the skull, and now I'm getting measurements along the spine, which is like a good way to measure the length of the baby. And I could see the umbilical cord kind of like bouncing around like a little jump rope with the baby.
That's so cool.
That's awesome. I do want to mention, so Jen and I have both had some experience in our past with red pandas, limited experience, but some experience. And I was lucky enough when I worked with the red pandas to observe some of these ultrasound sessions. Nice. It is so impressive the way that the scientist and the keeper kind of communicate back and forth through it all. And the entire time, the panda can walk away whenever it wants. This is completely voluntary. They're choosing to participate in this. If they get tired of it, if something's uncomfortable, they can walk away. And 9 times out of 10, they stay for the whole session. Right. And they're so patient. And yeah, the way that you two work together throughout the session was always very impressive to me.
Oh, thank you. I know, and I think it's such a testament to our like keeper staff working with like training the animals, because like, yeah, Marcy just voluntarily standing there for 3 minutes with like this ultrasound gel all over her belly, like totally fine in participating with it. It was like, that's amazing.
And you have to press like, it's not the same as hippos or giraffe, but you have to press a little bit of force and like put the pressure on their belly, and the fact that doesn't bother them is always really awesome.
There were a few, like the last couple sessions when I was like really trying to like follow like where the two babies were. I had to like kind of change up my angle and stuff, and Marcy was like, "What is this?" But she stuck it out. Like she was totally fine. Like you said, like when she's out of apples, she's over it. She's like,
this is it.
I don't want this. She like zooms off and like cleans the gel off of herself and is like, goodbye. Like, see you next week.
We're done. I'll be back for my apples.
Yeah.
Now you did mention that you saw 2 fetuses and that they were both looking healthy, and you were seeing a heartbeat for a while. We did announce today is June 26th, and this episode will come out in a week or so, but that there were 2 and one of them passed. Mm-hmm. Can you just briefly tell us a little bit about maybe what happened or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we stopped ultrasounding Marcy about 2 weeks out because we were pretty confident in our like estimated birth window, which I'm pretty proud of.
I was going to say,
we totally nailed it.
Did you? Yeah.
We got within like 5 days. I was like,
that's amazing.
Let's go. So we decided, because she's a first time mom, we'll just leave her alone. And like the keeper staff are like seasoned with bear pregnancy, with red panda pregnancies. So we just like, everyone decided like it would be best just let her do her thing. But, like, I think a thing that we forget about a lot when we talk about pregnancy is, like, pregnancy loss is also actually really common in people, too. So, you know, even though we did see, you know, 2 babies with, like, heartbeats and looking healthy up to, like, 2 weeks beforehand, there's still a lot that has to, like, happen to finish out the pregnancy for that animal to, you know, be successful and be thriving by the time it's born. So it's really hard to say, like, what exactly happened. But, like, you know, when some of these animals, like Aaron's paper with where they used ultrasound to track red panda pregnancy, they got 40% pregnancy loss just in their study across, I think it was like 20 animals from different zoos. So, and they saw twins where only one survived happen pretty often. So, it is, like, common for red pandas to have twins, but twins are always, like, regardless of the species, kind of like a risky investment. So I think it's, like, it's sad, but it is more natural than I think most people kind of hold in their mind when we talk about pregnancy. So.
And Marcy was a first-time mother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so I was going to ask you if twins were common for red pandas, but no.
Marcy, I was looking at her like lineage history, and she is like from a line of like many twin pregnancies, where it's kind of all over the place if both survived or if only one survived. We also, fun fact, if people listening don't know, but Audra and Lenore, the 2 females on the other side of the exhibit, are twins that were born at Cincinnati Zoo. So we have examples of successful twins here.
Yeah, definitely.
So, still beating the odds with our number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is the male, I should know this, is Zuko?
Yes.
Is that his name? Are Zuko and Marcy both pretty young and new to us? They haven't been here for long, right?
Marcy hasn't even been here a year.
Okay.
She got here like last fall to be paired with Zuko, and she's about to be 5 years old, and then Zuko is about 3 years old. So, and my favorite fun fact about Marcy personally, she came from the Red River Zoo in Fargo, North Dakota, which is where I did my master's. And in theory, going to that zoo, I saw like probably her mother or grandmother out on exhibit, because it's so cold North Dakota. There's not a lot of animals out, but the red pandas were always out and the wolves were always out. So
I was like, a connection.
I know, I was so excited to meet her. Like, oh my gosh, full circle.
That's perfect. Now, I know you are not a red panda specialist specifically, but can you tell us a little bit about red pandas? Like, do you know their like life expectancy and like where they're found? Any natural history facts you could share with everyone?
Yeah, red pandas are cool. They are like very genetically unique. They're the only living animal in their branch of their phylogenetic tree. So the family Iluridae, I think is how you say it.
You would know better.
No worries.
You would know better.
Yeah, but we biologists have kind of like argued over like what they are for a really long time. So that at one point they were like classified in like the bear family. At one point it was like raccoons. I think like some of the Latin name originally came from people thinking they looked like cats. So they've been like a weird like puzzle for biologists for a while. But now that we have like good like gene testing, we know that they're on their own branch with their own family. But then close to that branch is the raccoons and like the mustelids, like the mink and the ferret.
Okay.
And then related to those 2 branches are all of our bears.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's probably why they still have like all these same pregnancy adaptations. So like the diapause, the pseudo pregnancy, the delayed implantation of the embryo. But they're the only like living member of that family left. So they really are kind of like their own like separate species, which is really cool. And they still have like a quote unquote thumb, which is really interesting, which I think is like part of the reason we call them pandas, like the giant panda, even though like we now know like the giant panda is closer to the bear branch, or is off the bear branch, and the red panda is its own. So, but yeah, and the 2 different species are kind of found like depending on their like temperature range. So like Nepal is the big one for one of the subspecies. I'm terrible at Latin, so I'm not going to say it out loud.
That's fine.
but Nepal and then parts of India and Bhutan, so they have like colder weather, and then like similar environments but not quite as colder weather, like Myanmar and China is the species that we have at Cincinnati Zoo.
Okay.
But they typically live in like a high altitude temporal forest with bamboo understory, so because they eat a lot of bamboo.
I'd say that's the most of their diet, right? In the wild, do we know if they would eat fruit? I know they loved grapes when I worked with them, and like little apple and oat biscuits. I think we would soak for them.
I think they're like kind of opportunistic, like omnivore, because I've heard they'll eat some weird
like
things,
eggs and stuff too. Yeah, right? Okay.
And
so
like
they're
real
not
small
like
mammals.
Giant pandas where they would only specialize in bamboo. They're a little bit more.
They're a lot. I love giant pandas, but I feel like the red panda is a lot more like successful as an animal. Like they can like climb high up into the trees and like have bigger home ranges. So, and they like have they're opportunistic on like some of the things they'll eat instead of just like only eating bamboo. So,
But you mentioned there's only 10,000 left and they're endangered, and I haven't read up on them in forever. But like, is it mostly habitat lost? Do either of you know for their low numbers? If it's not, giant pandas are
I
just
think unfortunately,
red pandas are a little different.
It's definitely it's always like habitat loss, some poaching, but I know that like we've gotten better with that with like international like fur trade, like and like illegal wildlife trade, oh my gosh, what do you call it?
The International Red Panda. You're IUCN.
Yes. Like words. Now that so it's like habitat loss for sure, and then there was like poaching that has gotten better as we've like as it's been cracked down on internationally.
Do you know if pregnancy is hard for them in the wild, or if like
it's hard to say, right? Because they they meet up to breed and then they go off their separate ways, and they're kind of like elusive because they're like up in the trees in these forests. So they kind of like remind me a little bit of like how the snow leopards are sometimes called like these like ghosts of the mountain. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like the ghosts of these like foggy like high altitude forests. So
that makes sense, and it's really important then for us to be able to study them in zoos too. I mean, obviously it's not exactly the same as everything that would be happening in the wild, but it's the easiest way, I guess, to get information about them rather than in the wild where they're high up in the trees and high altitude and hard to find and all of the things.
Yeah, and I feel like the zoo animals also give us this like incredible opportunity to study them, but also to almost become like an arc, for lack of a better term, of like genetics for these animals, because we manage the two subspecies of red pandas differently with our like breeding recommendations in North America, but like that's a pretty recent like piece of knowledge that we have with the genetic testing. So being able to say like in the future, if we get a better idea of like which subspecies in the wild is suffering more, we might be able to supplement those genetics with what we have in zoos now that we have the ability to track pregnancy with ultrasound, and we've got these good like husbandry tactics for making healthy babies. So,
and you mentioned like kind of on the same page like that this is going to help with polar bear pregnancy research. Has it been enough time? Have you figured out kind of like, have you learned anything from the red pandas that will like lead to all of the polar bear research?
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of what we learned, which is it's always important to know what doesn't work. So unfortunately, a lot of what we learned is more things that we know doesn't work. Okay. So, we talked about like progesterone being the reason why pseudo pregnancy like tricks us. Some of our other hormones like prostaglandin also tricked us in the red panda. In dogs, you can see prostaglandin like changing as they like get pregnant, like when implantation happens, when the embryo starts interacting with the uterus. And that didn't work in the red panda. It weirdly spiked at the end as they were getting ready to give birth, which is cool and helpful for our like knowledge base of reproductive biology, but probably isn't like super useful if we are able to just ultrasound the animal. And it also once again tells us like if we could get a blood sample from a bear in a den, that would be more helpful than another point in time, but it's just unlikely.
Yeah.
So we mentioned a little bit about what you do on a daily basis. Part of it is getting to hang out with Marcy, but that's a very small part of it, I'm sure. There's poop crushing. We are the poop collectors, so I still, again, have no idea how you detect hormones in poop and how, like, what machine and who came up with the machine that can tell you, or the whatever. We don't want to get into that right now.
Yeah.
But so you're looking at poop probably and hormones in general. What else, like, what did you do today when you came into work?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, this week's been exciting because our newest postdoc just joined the bear team. And so she's going to be helping us with some really cool proteomics. So we're going, like, back down the rabbit hole with gene sequencing, but this time looking at proteins in the blood samples from all those animals I was telling you about. We were hoping to find, or we collected blood samples to look at extracellular vesicles in. So it's been fun, like, kind of showing her around the lab, and we kind of been giving her, like, the rundown of, like, what the heck does Bear Team do. So our other, like, big project, which I said I don't like computer work, but I've been doing a lot of computer work this week. But I've been trying to coordinate a new project we're getting off the ground with working in other bear species, particularly sloth bears and Andy bears. So they're more tropical and they don't go into the den. And they also, we're not, like, from a scientific perspective, we're not 100% convinced if they have seasonality in their breeding. Because, like, with the sloth bears, some of these sloth bear rescues in India see them, like, breeding year round. And there's kind of, like, surges of, like, the time of year when cubs happen, but it doesn't seem like outside of normal for them to give birth, like, in the fall and the spring. So we're starting, like, this big new project where we're going to be looking at hormones in females and males with the sloth bears, and, like, collaborating with other zoos. So Cleveland Zoo is, like, our big collaborator. Some more, like, Ohio local research going on. And then we're planning for trips for next year. So one of the big things we do in, like, the late winter, early spring is we'll go to other zoos and do fertility exams on polar bears when the veterinarians are knocking them down for health checks. And it's one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do with this job. I get to take my ultrasound, my best friend, and go to these exams. And, like, with the females, we're looking to just visualize the vagina and the uterus and the ovaries. Dr. Julie, who I mentioned before, has been bringing an endoscope with us. So it's like a scope with a camera on the end that we can actually, like, go internally and look at the inside of the uterus. Because we get... Same thing with pandas. We get bears that we see breed and then nothing happens. And so we're starting to, like, kind of check off the list, like, is this bear not getting pregnant because of something specifically with her, or is it something specifically with the male? So we'll also do male repro exams. And we'll go also collect sperm and bank it. So one of the things I've been working on with my intern and now going to teach the new postdoc is whenever we decide we have time, we'll thaw out sperm samples from our cryobiobank, our frozen zoo, and do all the tests that we would do on the day that we might use it to do artificial insemination. So look at, like, the concentration that survived freezing and thawing, the motility, like, does the sperm move in a straight line or move at all, and, like, we'll look at morphology, which is basically just, like, the anatomy of the sperm. Like, is it shaped normal? So that's been a fun, like, other side project we've been doing.
Wow. There's a lot that I didn't even realize
There's
that
a lot
other
going on.
bears
We're
having, like, would you say they have the same similar issues to polar bears? And polar bears were just in my mind because that's what our zoo has historically specialized in.
The tropical bears, we're doing a good job of breeding them in, like, zoo managed populations. But we also, like, still don't have a pregnancy test. And then like, a surprise to me is we don't even have, like, a complete kind of knowledge base of just, like, all the classic hormones associated with like ovulation and pregnancy, and same thing with, like, the males. Like, do they have, like, seasonal spikes in testosterone? Like, some animals, they only have high testosterone during the breeding season, and then the rest of the year they don't have much going on. And we just started, like, asking these questions and realized that no one's really characterized it. So like you kind of have to start with basics in order to like build upon it to start like talking about pregnancy tests. So yeah, there's like thankfully quite a few zoos that have been successful at producing sloth bear cubs and Andean bear cubs. So but unlike the polar bears, like the polar bears, we haven't had a cub in I think 4 years now in American zoos. So any way we can build on our knowledge base of like bear reproductive biology can help us like complete the picture and hopefully figure out a pregnancy test. So
yeah. And potentially you might be able to learn something in sloth bears or Andean bears that you take back to polar bears.
Exactly, yeah. I know there's like other health problems out there that the vets are interested in just to see if like, you know, because there's all kinds of things like when you're sick, like you might not be cycling, like animals won't ovulate or get pregnant if they're like fighting off a disease. And so I know there's some like minor disease questions related to reproduction that some of the vets at different zoos are interested in. But I'm just kind of on the ground up side of things with that project of like, how do we get more zoos in on giving us poop and giving us samples? So, yeah.
The data collection side of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing we're doing a lot at Crew right now is so like we get all of our hormones from crushing poop and then extracting hormones from it. But like I said, blood is kind of like our gold standard. We got a new machine recently that the cat team got called the Toso that we've been really excited about, and you can run blood samples on it with like a pretty small volume. And so they've been validating it for cats, and we've just started putting some of our male polar bear blood samples on it to measure testosterone, because if we can then compare that to the poop, we can see like how accurate the machine compares to our lab. And that way, if we get a blood sample, we could run it in like an hour and know the testosterone instead of waiting for a big box of frozen poop, thawing it out, drying it down in our lyophilizer, crushing it, extracting hormones overnight, and then running the assay the next day. So it's usually like a week at least to get the like values from the poop. It still like works every time, which is great, and we'll keep using it for sure. But we are excited to be able to, like, when we come back from these vet exams, if we get a blood sample that was like extra from what the vets got, we can just like run it that day and say like, hey, by the way, he had really high testosterone during the vet exam, so probably looks like he is producing sperm and like ready for breeding season. So
yeah, 1 hour's worth of work versus 1 week's worth of work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to like share with us about your job or about Marcy or red panda pregnancies in general before we do trivia?
I feel like we've touched on a lot. Sorry, we sidetracked you so many times.
Oh, you're fine. I think we kind of talked about everything I was hoping to talk about today. You let me say ultrasound 100 times, which was mostly my goal.
We love getting to see our animals, you know, when they're pregnant, doing ultrasounds on them as well. So it's exciting for us.
Yeah.
I don't blame you for like.
And I've just been so like, it's been such a blast getting to like follow a project with the same animal. You know, we do a lot of projects where we get samples and we get like health records and we like hear back from keepers at other zoos, and I occasionally get to meet the animals, but being able to like go work with the keepers like every week and like just seeing the progress in Marcy getting like so good at standing for ultrasound was like super satisfying, and getting to contribute to the 100th baby.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Awesome. That does extra special.
Yeah.
It's the most rewarding part of the job for sure.
Right? Yeah. I bet as zookeepers, I bet it's nice to watch like the real progress in real time in front of you, you know?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we have a pregnant giraffe right now, and it's a 15-month gestation, so a little bit different than 60 days. So it's like we get really, really excited, and then you kind of like forget until somebody mentions it for a little while, and then like the last month you're just like looking for all the signs.
On pins and needles. Right? Yeah, I can't wait for sure. Yeah, well, Dr. Tori, I do have some trivia for you. Some red panda trivia if you guys are up for it.
Let's do
it. We've got some true-false trivia today. The first question of which we actually already touched on. So, Jenna, we're going to see how good your memory is here.
It's not great.
The closest living, true or false, the closest living relative to the red panda is the giant panda.
Oh, well, they're a branch. Dr. Tori, do you want me to do my guess, or do you? You mentioned raccoons. I think it's raccoons. So that would be false. Is my answer?
Yeah,
false.
Long
Yep, it is. Hey, you had to think it through, but you got to the right answer.
Yeah,
That's the important part, Jenna. You got to where you needed to. It is false. So, just like Dr. Tori mentioned, they are kind of their own phylogenetic tree, but they're most closely related to the mustelid family, right? Yeah. So skunks, raccoons, that kind of stuff. Yeah. You're 1 for 1, Jenna.
Woohoo.
Give yourself
Nice.
some credit. Second question we've got for you. True or false, red pandas are extremely active and they spend about 18 hours a day foraging.
I'm very confident in my answer for this. Do you want to guess?
I mean, watching the ones here, it makes me want to say false, but I feel like, I'm going to stick with false.
I was going to say false.
False. It is false. It is false.
They
Yeah,
look
they're
more
actually
cozy than active.
pretty lazy animals. Yeah, they can sleep for up to between 18 to 20 hours a day.
Oh my
so
gosh.
they're saving their energy for when they really need it. Yeah.
Did you guys ever have a hard time getting them to come in for bedtime because of that? They're just
So
nope, too cozy.
I would say there were definitely mornings when they woke up slow where it was hard to bring them in the morning. Because they were sleeping outside in the trees overnight, and then it's morning time. It's like, come get breakfast, come get breakfast. They just take a glance at you and put their heads right back into their tails,
so
and you're like, come on.
Later.
Go come in on their own time, yeah. 2 for 2 so far. Next question I've got. True or false, despite being carnivores, bamboo makes up the vast majority, roughly 90% of a red panda's diet.
True.
Yep, we've got it. True, or 3 for 3. Like you all mentioned, though, they will opportunistically forage on some other stuff. So I've read they'll even eat small birds from time to time, and lizards, a small mammal if they can find it. But bamboo still does make up most of their diet. Yeah. All right, last question we've got for you. The Firefox logo.
I knew they were
The Firefox.
silly.
The Firefox logo is off-branded, and the logo is actually based on a red panda. True or false?
Ooh.
I'm trying. My brain can't recall what Firefox is for.
Firefox,
the web
browser. Yeah. It's
Okay, that's what I was
the web browser.
That's what I was thinking, but then I went to Safari. Yeah. That's not the same thing. Okay.
They're all web browsers.
Yeah.
It's all
Okay.
same thing.
I'm going to say true because when I was trying to figure out why they're called what they are in Latin, one of them was fire cat, so... But I don't that was an old name. Don't ask me to say the Latin. But I'm gonna guess true because of that.
I'll say true as well.
It is true.
Okay.
Yeah,
It is true? That's
so
crazy.
the logo was actually drawn based on a panda. And I don't know where the Firefox name came in. Maybe it is. If they were called Fire Cat in Latin, maybe it was
That's crazy.
some sort of translation. Yeah, but it's interesting because I always assumed it was a red fox when I saw the logo.
Yeah, I
It's
have
actually a
not
panda.
thought much about
Maybe I
that.
should
If you
switch
look,
trousers.
next time you look at the logo, you'll
Okay.
you'll notice it. That actually is a red panda. That makes a
Yeah.
lot more sense. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Dr. Tori, thanks for playing along with trivia. We went 4 for 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 100%.
Let's go.
Oh yeah, A-team.
Okay, so if you don't have anything else you wanted to make sure we bring up, I just have my final question.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Oh yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about red pandas and even seeing what organizations you can get involved with from afar, the Red Panda Network, which is just redpandanetwork.org, is this really cool organization that has people on the ground in Nepal and China and parts of India working with combating the deforestation that contributes to habitat loss with these animals. But also they have active research projects with just tracking some of those individuals in protected areas. And they do a lot of really cool kind of ecological style research on the red pandas. And I feel have some of the most up-to-date data on their habitat distribution and where we're getting these current numbers of how many red pandas are actually out there in the forest. So redpandanetwork.org is an awesome resource, and you can always donate to them. I'm sure they would love it. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, check out Red Panda Network for sure. And yeah, I always wonder, like, how do we really know how many animals are out there if we can't find them to begin with? But
oh, they're the ones with the binoculars in the forest walking around looking for the red pandas. It's really cool.
Taking survey samples and stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about a cool job.
No kidding.
Cool job.
So many cool jobs out there. Well, yes, we might bug you later to ask more questions about all of the cool work you've done.
Oh, anytime.
So interesting. My mind is always blown when I hear about all the things that you guys do over there. But well, thank you very much for joining us and all of your hard work with conservation and reproductive science and everything.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Yes, always fun talking to you. Thank you so much. And to all you listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cincinnati Zoo Tales. Until next time, take care.
Have a good one.